Okay. Hang on. Aha. How's everybody doing today?
Not too bad. How are you?
It's been one of those crazy days.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you.
Well, it was one of those things. I brought my car in this morning. I want to make sure I get all serviced up and taken care of before I hit the road next month. And it was one of those, yeah, we'll have it done by 2:00. And then it was 4:00. And then it was,
Mm-hmm.
it just got later and later and later. And I still don't have my car. But, and I'm not blaming them. I mean, they were working on the brakes, on the rear brakes, and I guess the calipers were seized up, so they kind of got stuck trying to get those things out, and then they had to end up having to replace them. So I'm like, yeah, all right, I can, okay, it's a pain, but I like the idea of stopping.
Yeah, I've known a few people that have gone without brakes and they just kind of use gravity to coast around. It's not fun.
No.
Oh,
Hey,
Hey, Tunnel Lord, how you doing?
doing good.
Why did you not expire?
There's a new background.
Yeah, I threw up a new background just to be a little different. I think maybe for the meetings and stuff like this is better than my video background. So,
excuse me.
besides, a bookshelf makes you look intelligent.
I was thinking this. It's like, hey, look, we look like we know what we're doing and know stuff. And
Yeah, I like the way you laughed at that right away too. Yeah, I caught that. There we go. All right.
Oh, so Biden's, gonna send, or he wants to go door to door for the vaccines and whatnot.
Yeah, actually, that's on my list of things I want to talk about tonight.
I had a feeling that would come up.
I actually have got a couple of things I want to talk about tonight. That's one of them. I want to talk about that. There's an organization, there's a group that's trying to do an amendment called Keep 9, which I want to talk about. And then what was the other one? There was one other one that was floating around here. If I were smart, I would have written it down. Let's see, it was what? Keep 9.
I guess
Biden.
the shelf doesn't help, huh?
Oh no, the Redeclaration of Independence. Did you guys read the Redeclaration of Independence?
Yeah.
So I kind of want to get people's thoughts about that, because I actually, that got picked up by a couple of feeds, and I got some interesting comments. So what's going on here? Oh, that's what the problem is. That's what the problem is. Hang on a second. I just made a mess of myself here. It's amazing what happens when you edit the right post. All right. Here we got we just got about 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, I felt bad. I had somebody contact me today about another event, not knowing your rights to her, but something else. He wanted to come talk to him. And it's like, well, they meet on the third Thursday of the month. I'm like, well, the only problem is the next two third Thursdays, I got stuff going on. One, I'm going to be coming back from Wyoming. So I don't want to trust that, everything's going to go peachy keen and I'm not going to have some sort of issue, for these guys. And then the next one is the day before Constitution Day. And I've already been warned that there's a couple things that may be going on that day. So I may not be in town that day. So I kind of felt sorry. I had to push them all the way off to October. But they seem fine with that. So, well, we'll see how that goes.
Well, that's a good problem. It means people are getting more involved and
Well, yeah, and this one's local. This is only a couple hours for me, so that's a lot easier. That's nice. And it's like it's one of those things is I'm not really complaining. What it was is I felt bad. It's like of all the days of the month you could pick, the only one worse would have been a live stream day. But what are you gonna do, right?
Did T-Rex Arms ever get back to you? Or, I mean, I assume you contacted them.
The two, no.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? It's funny. I get a lot of people. I have a lot of people that say, yeah, we'll get, we want to do this and we'll be in touch. And then it kind of goes nowhere. So we'll see. I always say yes. I always try to say I'd love to. Let's get together, but I rarely hold my breath because the percentage of follow-up is relatively small. So, but again, that's kind of the name of the business. It's the way it works, right? Okay, that's fixed. That's fixed. The stream is up. I got one person on Periscope at the moment, if I trust the YouTube. Oh, that was the other thing is Biden's lawsuit. Those are the four. Those are topics I was thinking would come up. It wasn't the redeclaring independence, although I'd be more than willing. I am curious what you guys thought about it, but it was the Biden's lawsuit. I want to get a copy of the actual complaint because I'm not sure, based on what's been reporting, and again, you know how much I trust reporters. I don't think his suit is not valid but there's an interesting possibility. So we'll chat about that. That's what I want to get.
Trump who had the lawsuit.
What?
I thought Trump had the lawsuit. I didn't know Biden. Oh, you said
I'm
Biden.
sorry. I'm sorry. I meant Trump.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I'm like, this is news to me.
No. It's the Trump lawsuit. Well, it's been kind of crazy. I had a couple of really good. There's a couple of really good Supreme Court cases that I've been working on. They'll be coming out over the next few weeks, so they've been loads of fun. So
I definitely have a question later on.
Well, we will probably have time. Yeah, see, that's what I like about this. It says one screen says I have one watcher, one screen I says I have no watchers. Which screen do I trust? I pay attention to none of the screens and we just take what we got. Okay. By the way, that's just a marker for me when I edit the video. It helps me find the breakpoint. Well, hello there, everyday Americans. You joined the Constitution Study. We are live in our Q&A. I am glad you could join me. I'm glad you could join us. As always, we are looking for questions. That's the whole idea of a Q&A. We have questions, we have answers. So just put a comment in. I should see it on my screen, and we'll try to answer that. I have several people in the Zoom room with me. If you want to join the Zoom room, all you got to do is register. Go to the Constitution Study. Register for any of the events. They happen twice a month. You'll get an email. And by the way, to the people who've been subscribing, I'm apologizing. I've been trying to fix a problem with the email sequencer. And it keeps doing stupid things, which makes emails go out early. So that's why you got a couple extra emails this week. Got them a little early. So. But yeah, if you sign up, you'll get a link to the Zoom call. And the nice thing about the Zoom call is we can actually have a conversation rather than just, trying to text back and forth and streams get interrupted and out of place. So that's that. By the way, if you don't know, you can find it over at constitutionstudy.com. Now, I like to start off these Q&As with just something I've thought about, kind of get things started. And I've got several things that I want to talk about. So let me start out with, we'll start out with the first one here. I know several people on the Zoom call, but did you read the Declaration of Independence? And if so, what did you think about it? Anybody on the Zoom call?
I thought it was scary, but accurate. I don't have it pulled up on my desktop here, but how should I put it? I was both satisfied that you didn't have to change a lot, but at the same time, I was scared that you didn't have to change a lot.
So for those of you who haven't read it, you can find it again, constitutionstudy.com. I basically, for Independence Day, I took the Declaration of Independence and I edited it for the 21st century. And I simply replaced parts of the federal government for King George. And the scary part was, how, as Andy brought up, how little I actually had to change. There's actually, of the 27 grievances, there's only one that I basically had to rewrite to get the English to make sense. But it's amazing, of the 27 reasons we declared independence from Great Britain, I can assign exactly the same thing to a branch of the current federal government, which, again, that's both wow and you're kidding me. So that was pretty good. Let's see. I have some topics I want to make sure we cover today. One is the Trump's lawsuit against big tech. I want to talk about Biden's door-to-door canvass to persuade people to get the virus. And I want to talk about, I just did an interview earlier this week regarding, it's called Keep 9, and it's a movement to pass a constitutional amendment to mandate 9 justices on the Supreme Court. So those are 3 things I want to bring. I want to cover. Does anybody have a preference of where we start?
I think the Supreme Court thing would be a pretty good start because, it's Congress who goes through the whole process of appointing the judges. So you would have to change that. You'd have to remove that. And
well, no. So Keep 9, and you can search for it. And so the idea behind Keep 9 is they want to pass a constitutional amendment that says the Supreme Court will be made up of 9 justices. So you don't change anything about how they're appointed. They're just setting a limit on the number of justices. Now, it's interesting that I got asked, I was interviewed about this in a 1-hour interview. I think we were about 50 minutes in before before we actually got to the question of what I thought about that amendment. I'm not thrilled with it. And here's why. This is the part that I wanted to bring up. So I agree that court packing is a really bad idea. Court packing is nothing new. It started back in 1800 with John Adams. Although he didn't try to pack the Supreme Court, he tried to pack the rest of the federal court system. Best known for FDR, right? So he threatened to pack the court if they didn't stop overturning his executive orders and laws and whatnot, and they folded. And now we have another attempt to pack the Supreme Court. The problem that I see is I can envision a need to expand the Supreme Court. So right now, thousands, tens of thousands, I believe, of requests every year go to the Supreme Court. Maybe thousands, maybe 10,000, it's like several thousand, but they take less than 100. Now, part of the reason is all 9 justices sit through every case. And the judge, we've had as few as 6 justices and as many as 10 justices on the Supreme Court. And I think the last time when we set it, the Congress set it at 9, it's got to be like mid 1800s. I mean, we had a country of 30 million people. We're now 330 million people. I could see the desire to expand the court if we organize it a little better. In other words, if the Supreme Court worked sort of like the circuit courts did, where you would randomly choose, say, 3 justices, they would sit in a panel, they would hear a case, they would offer opinion, and then those cases could be appealed to the entire court. In that case, well, first of all, if we did that today, theoretically, we could see as many as 3 times as many court cases actually heard by the court. Now, that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing, but it at least gives people their day in court. That if we expand the court, well, then there's many people, they can do that many more panels. I could see that as a possibility. Keep 9 doesn't allow for that. But my real problem with Keep 9 is it's trying to fix a symptom, not the problem. See, my problem isn't the number of justices. 9 isn't the magic number. It's not the number of justices on the court. It's the hyper-politicization of expanding the court. So my solution is a little different. What I propose is an amendment with 2 sections. Section 1, no expansion of the Supreme Court will take effect until after the inauguration of the next presidential administration. So if Congress were to pass, if my amendment were in place, if Congress were to pass a law expanding the Supreme Court to 13, it's not going to take effect until January 2025. It cannot take effect until we've been through a presidential election and that new administration is in office. So that's number 1. Number 2, no president is allowed to add more than 1 additional justice to the court. Meaning, if they want to go from 9 to 13, that's 4 more justices. That means 4 presidents will be nominating and appointing justices. It eliminates, it makes the hyper-partisanship null and void. What are the odds that the same party will win the next 4, will be the next 4 presidents will all be part of the same party? Extremely small. So that allows for a court to be expanded as the country continues to grow, but eliminates the partisan benefit of saying we're going to have one guy put a whole bunch of people on. Because trust me, if the Democrats pack the court, when the Republicans get control, which they will eventually, they're going to pack the court. And what you have is an arms race in the Supreme Court. That doesn't fix the problem. I think I understand the desire, but I think the solution is not simply to cap it, it's to remove the political benefit of a packing, because it's got to be spread out over time. And so I think I kind of the host on the radio program kind of, I don't think he quite agrees with me, but then again, well, that's fine. But that was my point of view. So anybody have any, you like that idea? You hate that idea? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, it will make the whole process of trying to get your guy into the Supreme Court, completely pointless. It won't do anything. But then again, the only reason why they want to pack the court is to opine in their favor, and by doing that somehow would supersede what the words of the Constitution says. So it's really,
they're doing it for the exact same reason that FDR tried to. They're threatening to do it for the exact same reason FDR threatened to do it, and that is, we are no longer getting our way, so we'll pack the court so that we get our way. You put whatever lipstick you want, that's the pig. So I have all right. So Incredipol has a question about force fact. Hang on to that, Incredipol. I actually want to talk about Biden and his vaccinations program, and we can talk about that when we get there, which may be next. But anybody else have a comment on my proposed amendment?
I guess I would just ask, well, that's always assuming that we're going to be a two-party country. I mean, we have Libertarian Party, Green Party, so on. So I guess it'll almost be a battle of how many parties there are in the country. Well, I'm just throwing that out there.
It doesn't matter, because, okay, let's say that there's a third party comes, a third party comes along. They just enter the mix, right? So it doesn't matter. You're still going to have, let's say we get a president from the Libertarian Party. Let's say we get a president that's an independent, that's not part of any party. It doesn't matter because of this amendment. Now, Sean's asking, because I guess he was a little tardy. There's a group called Keep Nine that is proposed, that wants a constitutional amendment to limit the Supreme Court to 9 justices. I'm not in favor of that. My amendment is 2-part. Section 1, no legislation expanding the size of any federal court can take effect until after the inauguration of the next presidential administration. So the first step is it delays, Congress can pass all it wants. It's kind of like the 27th Amendment, right? No legislation increasing the pay of Congress takes effect until the next House election. The second part is a president can add only 1 justice to a court. You can replace all the justices that die or retire, but each president can only add 1. So if you want to add 4 justices to the Supreme Court, it's going to take 4 separate presidents. And that just, to me, eliminates the issue.
But we already have that the president can't, he can nominate as many people as he wants currently, but it takes the consent of Congress, specifically the Senate, to appoint that person, to give that person a commission to the Supreme Court. So we already have the check. We just have to regain control of our government.
The point is, the president, right now, I believe it's federal law that there be 9 justices, right? Congress gets to determine the size of the Supreme Court. So
Right.
Let's say Congress says we want it to be 13. Well, okay, do you really want one president nominating 4 more justices? That's the political advantage. If you're saying, well, that's fine, but first of all, if my amendment were in place, Joe Biden wouldn't be able to nominate. Well, Joe Biden would have to win an election before he could nominate another justice. Second of all, if you want to nominate 4, it's going to take a minimum of 16 years for that to happen. Multiple administrations. Therefore, you don't have that rush to let's pack the court now, and you're less likely for it to be a single party doing it. So it puts it enshrines in the Constitution a structure to let's say counteract the unsavory
Impulsive government.
Well, I was thinking of the evil in the hearts of men. All right.
Sure.
If let's face it, if the Democrats knew that no matter what legislation they passed, they were not going to get to nominate all the new Supreme Court justices, why bother? It becomes a why bother. But if we have a legitimate reason to expand the government, we have a way to do it. It's just slowly and over time. Make sense?
It does make sense, and I don't disagree. I fear the courts probably more than any other branch of government at this point in time. So,
oh yeah,
and I mean, according to was it Hamilton? I think it was Hamilton that said the court can truly be said to have neither force nor will.
Alexander Hamilton, Federalist Paper number 78. A great read. You want to have an interesting read because in Federalist Paper 78, he not only says that courts have neither force nor will, only judgment. It's also where he says that no, how does he put it? No act of a delegated authority contrary to its commission can be valid. Therefore, no act of Congress contrary to the Constitution or any act of the Congress contrary to the Constitution is void.
Right.
So,
I mean, my only point is I think people put too much stock in the court system as it is, but specifically the Supreme Court. And so reinforcing protections of the Supreme Court reinforces people's ideology that the Supreme Court is all powerful.
Yeah, but again, it's not so much we're reinforcing the court, we're giving the court protection against. Right now, the court has, we're supposed to have 3 branches of government that are supposed to be in tension. Right? So think about it this way. The court has no way to say, hey, wait a second, we don't need 4 more justices. They can say it, they've got no way to enforce it. So really, there is no check on, the only check on Congress expanding the court for political reasons is the president. Right? So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, if you want to expand it, my amendment would be, we're going to eliminate the political drive to do that. It's not going to have the same political benefit as it would if you were to suddenly add 4 today. Right? So it's, and it's, again, this came up because there's a group saying, well, let's just cap it at 9. Well, maybe that's not the best answer. It was really meant to get people thinking along a different line. It actually would not be the First Amendment that if I had to, if I were in a convention of the states and I got the floor, my very first amendment proposed would be, we hereby repeal the 16th and 17th Amendment effective immediately. But that's a whole nother issue. Okay, well, listen, Incredipaul asked about forced vaccinations. I have a question because you all know, hopefully we're familiar that Joe Biden is got a plan. He wants to send people door to door and persuade people to get vaccinated. So let me start with Incredipaul's question. It is illegal for the government to force you to get a vaccine. It is a violation of the 5th Amendment because it's depriving you of control of your body. The 5th Amendment says you shall not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. James Madison wrote an excellent essay on property. My favorite quote from that is, you not only have a right to property, you have a property in your rights. property isn't just stuff. Your body is your property, and denying control of that is to deny you property. So the government cannot deprive you of control of your body without a due process, which is defined as a process that protects your individual rights. So if I'm not a lawyer, I don't play one on TV, but if someone with a badge shows up and a needle, he is an imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm. Those words are important because you know what the imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm is? That is the trigger point for the use of deadly force. In America, you can only use lethal force if there is an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury to an innocent person. Now, I really don't think the government is going to show up and force people to get vaccinated. What we're seeing are companies saying, if you want to work here, if you want to come onto our property, if you want to use our stores, you must be vaccinated. We are seeing schools that are saying, hey, if you aren't vaccinated, we're going to put you in the cheap seats. We're seeing a lot of that, and that needs to be opposed wherever possible. But understand, as a private company, a privately owned company, they can set the standards for access to the property. It's called the right to exclude. I'm working on an article called Grimm versus Gloucester Board of Education, or Gloucester School Board, something like that. It's coming out later this month, and it gets into the question of the right to exclude. No, sorry, that wasn't Grimm. That was, what was the one Cedar Point. I think that's coming out in a week or two. Cedar Point versus whoever. But it talks about the right to exclude people from your property. And that is a fundamental part of property rights. But then again, private business cannot force you to come out to do business with them. They don't have the force, which is, again, why it's important that you decide who you're going to do business with. Who do you trust to do business with? Like I said, I'm not flying to the Northern Plains this summer because I don't trust the airlines to not do something stupid. So I'm going to drive. That's kind of the nature of the beast. Now, the question I want to bring up, because I was thinking about this. So Biden in a press conference says, hey, I want to send people door to door to persuade people to get a vaccine. Okay, first of all, at this point, who in America that wants the vaccine hasn't already gotten the vaccine? If there's anybody out there who wants the vaccine that hasn't gotten the vaccine, they got other issues, right? So this is intimidation. This is persuasion. This is the peons are not doing what I want them to do. So I can't send a guy with a gun to force him to do it. I'll simply send somebody to knock on the door and be a pest. So I thought about this for a while. You know what happens when I think? It gets dangerous. And tell me if you want. I'm thinking about actually writing this up and posting this on the website. This is how I deal with the person who shows up at my door trying to persuade me to get the vaccine. Are you ready? Step one, someone knocks on the door and says, yes, Mr. Engel, I want to talk to you about getting the vaccine. One moment. Okay, yes, you're now on camera. Now, what were you saying? Oh, you want to talk to you about getting a vaccine. Can I see your ID, please? Hold it up to the camera so I can see. Nice and good. There you go. Oh, you don't want to show me your ID. So you're telling me you're telling me that Joe Biden is telling you to go do this, but you're not showing me that you are an agent of the federal government. Okay, no, thank you. You're trespassing. Please leave immediately. Oh, you don't leave. Okay. If you don't leave, you are trespassing. If you do not leave immediately, I'm calling law enforcement. Oh, okay. 911, speakerphone. What's your emergency? Yes, my name is Paul Engel. I live at this address. I have a gentleman or lady on my property. They are trespassing and they refuse to leave. They're harassing me and they are claiming to be an agent of the federal government, but refuse to provide ID. I want the ID because I want to know how to, now, if they haven't left by the time I call 911, I want the cops to show up because I'm going to say, here's a video of this person. There's their face. I want to press charges. Yes, they left. They only left after I threatened to have law enforcement show up. They are a menace. And if they're doing this to me, they're probably doing it to my neighbors. Therefore, I want a criminal complaint filed against them. Now, my guess is Biden's not going to get official federal agents to come do this. He's going to get his list of idiot sycophants that will do anything for the Democratic Party and socialism, and he'll get them to show up. So now it's my neighbor. Now, where I live, I don't know if I'm sure there's a Marxist in the county. I'm not sure where. This isn't Nashville, right? But it's possible. So I think about these. What I'm thinking of, should I write up a set of, this is what I would do if someone came up and here's the justification for other people to have and to share. What do you think?
Do it. That'd be great because see, I can post it on the Gab group for the Idaho Patriots, and they might do it as well. And what'll be nice is that it'll stop locals from doing that, going to other people's houses and perhaps coercing them or somehow convincing them to get the vaccine. So yeah, it's a great idea. It'll definitely help.
One thing I'm definitely going to do is I'm going to tell anybody, research your state and county laws regarding trespass, right? Do you live on an apartment building where the rules about trespass in your state? Does the state say before you can charge them, you have to warn them 3 times rather than twice? Find out what the rules are, but know what those rules are. Have a phone, have a video recorder, record it, because the next thing I want you to do once they leave is I want you to go through that video and find out, again, looking for information. Yes, I've got a great picture. Here's the picture for the complaint. This is interesting. This person claimed to be doing something for the federal government, refused to provide ID. That's impersonating a federal agent. All right. You can go through there and find things and just say, that's how you want to do it. So yes, I'll put that on my to-do list, is to write that up and post it to the website, kind of like I did with the Knowing Your Rights placard, right? I'll have something you can have and print out and keep by the door if you need to, as a little reminder. Most importantly, what you do is you tell your family. I made a point of telling my family, even when my daughter was little, it's like, hey, if someone shows up, comes to the door, you don't let them in. Right? I don't care if they say if they're from the government, you do not let them in the door unless they hand you a piece of paper with a warrant on it, which little girls, but as she grow up, right? It's like, no, someone shows up at the door, someone with a badge shows up, right? A sheriff, a deputy shows up. That's fine. You're not allowed in. Nothing personal, but no, you're not allowed in unless you have a warrant. And even then I don't consent to any search. So it's the same thing. It's being prepared ahead of time.
I told my family not to even open the door. If whoever's on the other side of the door, you say, "Who are you?"
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll respond. I'm just going to speculate that it's a sheriff or something. And if they say Natrona County Sheriff, you say, "What's your business here?" If they say anything other than "I have a warrant," say, "I don't want to talk to you. You can leave now."
Mm-hmm.
Come back with a warrant. I have absolutely no desire to talk to you at all.
Oh yeah, my answer is not simply my answer is leave now or I'll have you charged with trespassing. Because I've actually talked to my sheriff about this. I made a point of talking to him and says, if a government agent shows up and is trespassing on my property and will not leave, right, I want your deputies to show up and to recognize the true situation there, that there are rights involved. So, but it's part of that, preparation, the forethought. So incredible. Let me know, did that answer your question, or did I open up another can of worms for you. Okay, Matthew Dorbecker. Hello, Matthew. It's a new face. I haven't seen you before. I have a question about how much power towns have over the counties. I live in a very rural town of 2,000, no lights, and one sheriff for us and 3 other towns. How much power do we have? Okay. Power is a bit of a nebulous term, but let me explain. I need to explain something to you. The Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land. It supersedes absolutely everything. Congress cannot make a law that violates it. Anything that, the Supremacy Clause says only laws of the United States made pursuant to the Constitution, only treaties made within the power of the United States are also supreme. So the Constitution, step one. The Constitution of the United States created the United States. By the way, the Constitution of your state created your state and its government. Counties actually have a fair amount of power. We've all heard about checks and balances, right? There are 3 branches of government. No, they are not co-equal, but there are 3 of them. There are also 3 levels of government. You've got the federal government, you've got the state government, and you've got the county or local government. The purpose of those layers is to protect you from everyone else. So in other words, the federal government is there to protect us from foreign influences. That's it. It's to protect our rights, protect us from foreign influence. States are to deal with domestic issues and to protect us from the federal government. Counties, your county sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. They do not work for the state. They do not work for the federal government. They work for the people of that county. They take an oath to support the Constitution of the United States and of their state. That is part of their oath of office. They actually have a lot of power. A sheriff or their deputy can arrest a federal agent if that federal agent is committing a crime, a state crime or a federal crime. I'm not sure about the federal crime. I'm sure about the state crime. So, for example, let's take what we were talking about before, right? So let's say ATF shows up at my door and says, Mr. Engel, we think you have some of those scary AR-15s. President Biden has decided those things are terrible, and you didn't turn them in like you're supposed to. We're coming to confiscate them. I call my sheriff. Excuse me, sheriff. I have someone from the federal government that is trying to break into my house and steal my property. Please send deputies, many deputies, as quickly as possible. I want him arrested because I want him arrested or her, right? ATF, right? For attempting to either gain entry to my home or to threaten me. You're using threats of intimidation and extortion. So I want him charged with that. Oh, by the way, I also want you to contact the FBI because he's attempting to commit a federal crime. He is threatened to commit a federal crime. It is a federal crime to deprive you of a right protected by the Constitution under color of law. ATF, color of law, right? The sheriff actually can arrest that ATF agent legally. The sheriff, he says, yep, this, here we have evidence of a crime. Slap the cuffs on him, read him his rights, and take him off to the hoosegow. Now, most sheriffs don't do that because they're terrified. We've been trained that the federal government is everything. I listened to Cam Edwards, Bearing Arms, used to be with the NRA. And the one thing that always grates on me is he says, well, these people should be charged with federal gun crimes. No, the federal government isn't our master. It's our servant. It isn't supposed to be worse because it's the feds, not the states. The feds are no one special. They are to be subject to the same laws as everyone else. So one of the reasons why I say we should focus on our counties and our towns, they can act as a buffer, as a protection against state and federal actors. Think of it this way. Let's say President Biden passes some executive order, ATF passes some rule, suddenly AR-15s are illegal. Well, the sheriff can actually say, no, that's a violation of the Constitution. Anybody trying to enforce that in this county will be arrested. And in fact, there was a sheriff. Oh, who was it? I'm drawing a blank on the name. The USDA was harassing a farmer. There was a dairy farmer, right? So they were coming in every week and doing inspections and over, just harassing the man. So he went to his sheriff, and his sheriff sent a letter to the FDA and said, quite simply, you will not put another agent on this man's property without coming to me first, or that person will be arrested and charged, and I will make sure he goes to trial here in the county because you are harassing one of my citizens. Perfectly legal. It's, so by having that local bubble, it's near impossible to make a change at the state level. It takes a lot of work to make a change at the state level. It's very difficult to make a change at the federal level. It's a lot easier to make a change at the local level. I recommend you meet with your sheriff, that you basically say, listen, this is what I want. All I want is when I pick up the phone and dial 911, that whatever deputy shows up recognizes their first job is to protect the rights of the people involved. If you do that, I will support you when people come after you for actually doing that. Whether it's, the media or the state or the feds, or I will stand with you. I will stand with you if you help protect my rights. Because now there's a little bit of protection there and you have more influence there. So it's very important to do that. That's the system is designed. That's the other thing is the way our founding fathers created this nation. The vast majority of the power actually resides at the county level, right? The counties control the states, right? Or I should say the counties are designed to buffer the people from the states. The states buffer from the feds. And so if you think about it, the federal government, which everyone is afraid of, is actually the least powerful government according to the Constitution. They're the bottom of the heap, not the top of the heap. So, Matthew, if you talk about how much power, they actually have a lot of power when they're enforcing the law. And it is just as incumbent on your sheriff to enforce the Constitution as it is your senator, your state's, your U.S. senator, the U.S. rep, the president, anybody. They take an oath to support the Constitution. It's incumbent on them to do that. One of the greatest things you can do to your peace of mind in all this craziness is work with your sheriff and make sure and help them understand their role as a constitutional sheriff. And one of the best places to do that, one of the great ways of doing that, go online and search for some of the speeches by Sheriff Mack, M-A-C-K. He has some great speeches helping to educate sheriffs on their role and their duties. So that's cool. County versus state, a couple of welcomes. What we got here? So Matthew, spreading the word about this show. Thank you. This show, the 10th Amendment Center, another, a good organization. We don't always agree on everything, and that's okay. We live in a free country, but I do like a lot of the 10th Amendment stuff. In fact, if you're a member of the Constitution Scholars, I'll frequently post material from them in the different state groups because they have some very good information, especially this idea of state sovereignty and the fact that the states created the federal government. My line is the states created the federal government. It's about time they tell them we can take you out and create another one just like you. So thank you for spreading the word. And hopefully you'll bring some friends to the Q&A next time too. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Let's see. I like the ideas. I like that idea, but doesn't that mean that I'll be added to a list of extremists? Well, Incredible, you're on a list anyway. And right now, according to the federal government, the very fact that you actually believe the Constitution says what it means, what it says, means you're an extremist and probably a domestic terrorist. And I am not joking. If you look at the reports, the training that federal law enforcement has, the very idea of believing in free speech, freedom of the press, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution as the supreme law of the land makes you a domestic terrorist in the eyes of federal law enforcement. So you're already on a list. But here's the other question I have for you. I want to word this so I don't get misunderstood. What is more important to you, your list or your freedom? See, the interesting thing is only about 3% of the colonists actually fought for freedom, for independence. A third of the colonists wanted to be independent. A third wanted to remain British citizens. A third didn't care, but only 3% actually fought. The question, when our founding fathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, what are you willing to pledge? And really, is being on a list of people who support the Constitution such a bad thing because somebody calls it an extremist? When I was a kid, I learned this little ditty. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I get called a lot of names. The more I get noticed, the more names I get called. Okay. Name calling to me is the last resort of, it's the last round of the uneducated mind in a battle of wits. So will you be put on a list? You're probably already on the list. In fact, the very fact that you went to that you are on a YouTube channel titled The Constitution Study, you're probably on someone's list somewhere. It's the nature of the beast. But if our founding fathers were willing to pledge their lives, their fortune, their sacred honor, what are we willing to pledge? What are we willing to risk? I was doing an interview for the radio program, and I was talking to a lovely lady, Kathy Chamberlain. She wrote Rules for Deplorables. She wrote the book, and we were talking about heroes, stories of heroes during the COVID pandemic, scamdemic, whatever you want to call it. People who stood up and said, no, we're not going to, like from the movie Network, right? We're mad as hell. We're not going to take it anymore. They were willing to stand up and be put on a list and be called all sorts of names because their liberty and their freedom was worth it. Find the video of the Canadian pastor, Arthur, and I'm not going to butcher his last name. Not Arthur, Aurtur, I believe it is. And here you have a man standing in front of, I think it was health inspectors and law enforcement, yelling, screaming, no, get out of here. Gestapo, Nazis, get out of here. Every time they try to talk, he just, no, you're not allowed to talk here. You're trespassing. Go. I mean, this guy was amazing. Yeah, he's on the list. He's in jail.
That was a fantastic video of somebody standing up for their inalienable rights. I don't care if the guy lived in Canada or not. I don't care whether or not they have free speech. I don't care if they have property rights. That was outstanding watching that guy say, you have no authority here. Leave my property. You cannot speak. This is private property. You're trespassing. Leave now. It was fantastic.
It was absolutely. I recommend everybody find it, download it if you can, because who knows how long before. I'm surprised YouTube has left it up, right? But we have to ask ourselves. Let me ask you a different way. What is your children's liberty worth? It's one thing for us to protect our own liberty. What about our children? I mean, you look at read any dystopian novel. On my trip this summer, I got the audiobooks of 1984 and Brave New World because we're living in those two books. But watch any dystopian movie. Read any book of a dystopian future. And what do you see? The vast majority of people who just sat back and said, well, I'm afraid that something might happen, and they lost everything. And it was the people that stood up, I'm drawing a blank on the name, the man who said, I regret that I have but one life to live, one life to give for my country. All right, maybe you're not prepared to go to that extreme. But, during World War II, Martin Niemöller wrote this poem. Actually, let me quote it because I want to get it right. I can paraphrase it fairly well, but I want to get it right because
Can I read up a quote from Thomas
sure.
Jefferson while you're looking that up?
Yeah, go for it.
We were talking about something earlier that made me think of it. Said, the people cannot be all and always well informed. The part which is wrong will be discontented in proportion to importance of the facts they misconceive. If they remain quiet under such misconceptions, it is lethargy, the forerunner of death to the public liberty. And what country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that its people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms.
That lethargic part is like dead on right now.
Yes, it is. And that's but like I said, we were talking about something that made me think of it. My wife was actually supposed to make me a shirt with this quote on it.
So I like there's a much short there's another version that really gets to me, or another quote from Jefferson that says, he who wants to be ignorant and free wants what never was and never will be. That fits better on a shirt. But here's a Martin Niemöller quote. And just think for a second. All right. So it said, first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Now you could take that exact same poem and say, okay, first they came for the conservative, and I did not speak out because I was not a conservative. Then they came for the Republicans, or let's pick some other. And I did. The point we eventually come to is, if we won't stand for anybody else, there'll be no one left to stand. If your goal is simply to be the last lion, the last one eaten by the lion, you still get eaten by the lion. At some point, we have to decide if we're going to stand and how far we're going to stand. Not everybody. Again, only 3% actually fought. It's actually not the person that stands up. To me, it's the person that comes and supports that person that makes the true difference. You know what? That Canadian pastor is in jail. They just arrested 575 people for showing up on January 6th. Most of the charges I've seen are really pretty minor, but we still have to have a commission on that, because heaven forbid that we actually question that Joe Biden won the presidency. But the best video I saw last year was a business owner in Buffalo, New York. Some inspector showed up with 2 deputies. He refused to let them gain access. They were trespassing. They didn't have a warrant. He demanded that they leave. His speech was wonderful. But when the people in the store, whatever it was with him, the customers stood up and demanded that they leave, that's what made the difference. Those 2 sheriff's deputies were more than prepared to enforce the will of this inspector of some sort, until there was a crowd standing going, no. We have to decide, when are we going to stand up?
Do we know what happened after that? Do we know if more officers came to try and enforce the inspector's policies?
All I've ever seen was that video.
That's all I've seen as well. So,
but the reason I use it is I often contrast it to a video that came out at a similar time of a mother in Texas watching her son play football outdoors, sitting next to her mother, but 20 feet from anybody else. And some guy with a badge showed up and tried to arrest her, and she refused. She said, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. She wasn't wearing a mask. She got tased. The guy tased her, handcuffed her, and dragged her away. And while you're watching this all happen on video, you know what you see from the crowd around them? Pretty much everyone's looking away in shame. No one would stand up for this woman. No one would. She was left alone. She hung alone because no one would hang with her. And that's, if we want to be, if we just want to sit back and let everything, then our liberties we've been doing that for how many years now? 50, 60 years? And our liberties are disappearing. That ain't working. So, okay, let's see what else we got up here. If Biden agents show up at my door, I'll ask them to help quarter and package the deer I just got. I'm sure that will trigger at least one of them. If you're not on the list, are you even trying? Probably not. Probably not. Let's see. Elkhart, Indiana sheriff. Oh, okay. I guess that's your sheriff. Hey, I hope, Matthew, have you sat and met with your sheriff? Have you talked with them? Have you explained them what? So we got a couple new people on here. I made a point quite a while back to meet with my sheriff, and actually I waited. I found a way to meet him in public before I had set up a meeting with him. Right. So I went to a county board meeting. He was there. I introduced myself, said, I want to come and just meet with you for a while. He goes, about what? I said, I just want to talk. And okay. Set up the meeting. And I did. I told him, here's what I want. What I want is what I really want for you is when I pick up the phone and dial 911 and a deputy shows up, I want them to know that their first and primary job is to protect the rights of everyone there. It's not to enforce state law. It's not to enforce federal law. It's not to enforce a governor's executive order. It is to protect the rights of the people involved. Because absolutely, that is true. And we talked quite a bit about that. So I said, there, fine. And if that's the case, my promise to you is, if you need support, I'm there. If you make a stand for rights and the media comes after you, the governor comes after you, I'll be there. What do you need? You want my advice? I've got constitutional knowledge. I can quote you the Constitution and court cases left, right, and center. What do you need? You need someone to stand with you at a press conference. You need someone to get in front of a camera and explain all that was going on. That's what I'll do. You want me to help? You want me to help with your deputies? That's what I'll do. You're going to protect my rights. I will support you. It's a mutually beneficial agreement. We should have that with our governors and say, yeah, you know what? If you protect my rights, I will support you. And I'm not talking about an election support, which is a way a lot of them think. I mean, I will support you in those constitutional actions. I will be, you need me to come testify. You need me to go to court and testify. You need me to testify in front of the legislature. I will do that if you're protecting my rights and the rights of my family. And so that is, I recommend that we do that. And yeah, ATF believes they are above it all. Absolutely. They believe they're above it because they've been trained that way. Let's see, Incredipol. Do me a favor, when you get a chance, go to the website, constitutionstudy.com, look up Knowing Your Rights. There's a placard. There's several things you'll find, but there's a placard there. And I wrote this up specifically so that people could inform law enforcement of the actual rules. So I was doing an event in a town near me, different county. Just before the event, the county instituted a mask mandate. So this is what, spring, summer last year. I show up, the coordinator says, listen, we should be fine. We're on private property. They should leave us alone, but you don't know what the police are going to do. I says, I don't care. They have no legal right to force me to wear a mask. In fact, it's a crime for them to force me to wear a mask, and I can prove it. And I showed her this. I had copies. I showed her the placard. I said, here's all the proof I need that it's a crime for them to do that. And oh, by the way, if they attempt to force me to wear a mask, I will call the FBI. I will call my lawyer, then I will call the FBI. But when you inform ATF or state police or a sheriff's deputy that this is my right, if you deprive me of a right protected by the Constitution of the United States under color of law, that is a federal crime punishable by 1 year in jail. Oh, by the way, you even threaten to reach for that firearm, that's now 10 years in jail. Okay, you still willing to go do this? So let's see. Do I have a schedule of the live Q&A? The live Q&As are the second and fourth Thursday of the month, 7 p.m. Central Time. If you go to constitutionstudy.com, they'll always appear in the calendar on the right-hand side. If you click on one of them and register, you will get the email with the link so you can actually join the Zoom call. So yeah, that's cool. We have a 3%er. Okay, here's a question. Why did Madison say an amendment was not needed for the Louisiana Purchase? Oh, excellent question. I was having this discussion with someone else the other day. So for those of you who are taught in school, Thomas Jefferson purchased a boatload of land from the French. They were going to sell it to the Spanish. They said, no, we want to buy it. Thomas Jefferson said, listen, the Constitution doesn't allow me to do that, but it's the only way to avoid a war. So I hope that that the people will actually he didn't say retroact, that the people will approve it, even though, that they'll pass the amendment, even though I don't legally have the authority to do this. Now, Madison is a Federalist. Madison believed in a strong central government. He looked at it and said, well, you have a treaty process, right? And this is basically a treaty. Yes. So, Jefferson Jefferson negotiated a treaty. He did it with the advice and consent of the Senate. He signed the treaty. Absolutely true. Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution says that only treaties made within the power of the United States are considered supreme law of the land. The United States does not have the authority to hold property except for very specific purposes, and that property must be purchased from a state. All right. So Washington, D.C., that's federal property. Congress has legislative authority over that. They also have legislative authority over land purchased from the states for forts, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. That's it. So even though they went through the treaty process, they were enacting a power, that of acquiring property, that the federal government does not have. I just had this debate with somebody via email over the last few days. Now, here's the interesting thing. The 10th Amendment says that any power not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution generally remains with the states unless it's prohibited to the states, meaning the states could have purchased the Louisiana Purchase and then have those state territories then divide off and become states over time. But, so that's one of those, why did Madison do it? I believe, again, I wasn't in Madison's head, but he definitely was a Federalist.
Isn't a deed a contract? A deed for land would be contract, right? Well, the Constitution says that the states are prohibited from entering a contract or compact with any other state or foreign nation, so they wouldn't have been able to buy it. But
I hadn't thought of that.
But I do tell people all the time. I say Thomas Jefferson is my favorite president. I love Thomas Jefferson, but I tell people all the time about the Louisiana Purchase. I say very unfortunate circumstance that was not foreseen in the Constitution. And while I love the fact that we made the Louisiana Purchase, I cannot give my blessing to it because it was done unconstitutionally. And I can't forsake the lens of the Constitution for even my favorite president, but it was done as constitutionally as possible.
Yeah.
And it gives a little leeway, but not much. no matter which way you slice it, it was illegal.
And ultimately, what should have happened, right? Because Jefferson went to he said if we don't do this, we will be at war, right? He had every good reason. The sad thing is okay, then why did not Congress submit in a proposed amendment to the state saying that the federal government could acquire land not part of a state, but then set the rules for how that land gets handled? Because one of the travesties of both the Louisiana Purchase and the further expansion out west is when the territories petitioned to become states, with the exception of Texas, to my knowledge, they were extorted into giving up control of their public land.
Mhm.
So when a state petitions to become, when a territory petitions to become a state, there's what's called an enabling act. And in that enabling act, Congress said, listen, one of the things you have to pass a constitution, you have to approve the US Constitution. There's a whole list of things they have to do. And one of the things they have to do is all public land will be held by the federal government, by the United States, in trust until it is disposed of. Well, then they just never dispose of it. So something like 3/4 of the land west of the Mississippi is owned by the federal government because they extorted it from the territories as a condition of becoming a state of the union.
If you look at the BLM land, I live in Wyoming. If you look at the BLM land for Wyoming, it covers the majority of the state. I mean, virtually everything is BLM land.
Yep.
And while I love the fact that this land is considered public land for many circumstances, it's a state thing. The federal constitution very, very clearly says that the federal government cannot hold land unless it's purchased from a state. And they can't just own the land to own it. It has to be for a specific purpose. And if it does not meet that specific purpose, they're not allowed to own it.
A listed purpose. Yeah. And again, the only way to describe it is extortion. It was flat out extortion. I can think of no legitimate reason why public land in a territory would not have simply become public land in the state rather than the federal government, except the federal government wanted the land. And again, extortion, illegal, but most people don't know the truth about it. So, okay, where are we here? Let's see. I've noticed more and more it's going to come down to us country folk and city folk, and I like my odds. Well, Matthew, it's interesting. I don't know if you follow. So, I've got the website. I put out an article every week, a video every week. I'm on America Out Loud 5 days a week at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Plug. So I talk about this a lot. One of my quotes, I love quotes, is from Santayana. Those who refuse to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And if you look, the last time this country that I can see was this divided was in the 1860s, 1850s, 1860s. The difference is then it was much more geographically bound. Now it is much more, as you say, it is urban versus rural. So, urban centers have one point of view, rural has another point of view, and sadly, both of them seem bent on enforcing their will on others. Now, it's much more the urban forcing their will on the rural, but it is not exclusively one way. Sorry to tell you that. But the sad part is, one of my sayings is, listen, we're going to have to fight for our rights. If we will not fight for it at the ballot box, then our children will fight for it on the battlefield. Do you really want to leave that to your children? Those who don't study history will forever remain a child. I have to look that one up. That's another one. Okay, let's see. What age is appropriate for my kids to start learning about the Constitution? All right, well, Matthew, I get this question a lot. Ultimately, you know your children better than anyone else. So I can't put a number on it because, some children understand are different places. Some students are, pick things up very quickly, more mature, some of them not so much. But here's my general rule of thumb. Generally, somewhere about around 8th grade is the point where most children I've met are able to really study the Constitution. Now, one of the things last year? Was that only last year? Wow. I did a Constitution primer up in North Dakota. I had 150 middle school and high school students. We had a great time. We studied the Constitution for an entire day. Your children may be a little older, a little younger, but here's the thing. Studying the text of the Constitution and learning the concepts of the Constitution are two very different things. One of the things I've got them for sale on the website. I sell them when I do these events, are coloring books. You can take, basically any child that, when you're coloring and they're coloring things like, Madison and Jefferson and different historical things. Those are opportunities to talk to them. And let's face it, can you explain the idea of freedom of speech or property rights? Just think for a second. If you have more than one child, tell me you have not had an argument about she said something, he said something. Tell me you haven't had that argument. She stole my toy. He stole my. All right. I have a sister that's 4.5 years younger, and we fought over everything. Well, just think about it. Can you not begin to instill this idea of, conscience rights? You know what? Yes, you have the right to say what you want until you hurt someone. That's not using your rights properly. Yes, that's their property. They own it. This is your property. You own it. But that also means you can negotiate. Do you want to share it? I find it interesting, and maybe it's the public school in me, but look at how often it is you have to learn to share. That's a socialist idea. What we have to do is negotiate the conditions under which I will share. That's a liberty idea. That's property rights. So you've got the First Amendment, you've got property rights. You have the idea of laws. Now, one example with my laws and authority. When my daughter was small, we had a rule, right? The rule in our house was what mom and dad said is the law. Now, you have the right, my daughter, you have the right to ask us to reconsider once, right? So if we say, I don't know, bedtime, she can say, but dad, tomorrow's a Saturday. I can sleep late. I want to watch this program. Can I stay up, please? You know what? That's all right. You made a good argument. Maybe I'll let you do it. Maybe I don't. No, honey, you can't watch that program. Okay, but dad, all right. So the concept of there are laws, and those, you have the right to question those laws, not simply to overrule them. Well, okay, think about it. Mom and dad, we make the laws, right? I enforce the laws. We judge the laws, right? My wife and I, we were the three branches of government, right? But she had the right to petition for a redress of grievances. Those are the fun things I find out. So I think we can introduce the concepts as soon as they're old enough to begin comprehending things like that. You find opportunities. As soon as they can read English, they can read the Constitution. But if you actually talk about studying it and truly understanding the concepts, generally most kids around 8th grade, when I'm doing events for middle schoolers and high schoolers, I generally said my general belief is about 8th grade, but it's up to the parents. I know a lot of eighth graders that have no clue, wouldn't understand what I'm talking about. I know a lot of fifth graders that could argue with me about the Constitution. So, yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule, but that's what I go for. Florida man, I'm assuming you're talking about the Louisiana Purchase. Yeah, it was the Louisiana Purchase was a political expediency, and it's, think of it this way as well. Habeas corpus. Who here remembers that Lincoln suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War? Absolutely illegal. Absolutely illegal. Congress has the authority to suspend habeas corpus, not the president. Now, Congress came after the fact and they passed a law backing up President Lincoln. If Congress had submitted a constitutional amendment saying the federal government can purchase land from foreign entities held in trust for the people and put some boundaries around that, they probably would have gotten most of the states to abide by it, in which case, although Jefferson broke the law by signing the treaty, it kind of would have been retroactively made okay. So 10th Amendment Center said that. Yeah, I'm not surprised. That's pretty much history. Yep. But again, all right, so everybody in the cabinet, it's part of it is we have to put yourself in their shoes. Face it, politicians, judges, they generally have an outcome they want and they're looking for a legal way to justify it. I spend most of my time dealing with Supreme Court cases. What I'm dealing with are judges trying to come up with a way to justify their own opinion. Yes, the treaty clause says he could sign the treaty, but that treaty was not a power delegated to the United States. So let's see if I can come up with a good analogy. Oh, well, here you go. Congress passes a law outlawing the owning private ownership of firearms. They passed a law. They went through the correct process, right? One house voted on it. The other house voted on it. They sent it to the president. The president signed it. They followed the process, but they were enacting a power not delegated to the United States. Therefore, that act is void. Now, that means that when Congress approved a treaty to do something the United States wasn't authorized to do, they were, I like where this is going. That's one of the reasons why I like talking to you guys. And we end up with some really interesting conversations. Where we go, Federalist Papers. Yeah, with the video streaming up my website's a little slow. One of the downsides of living out in the middle of nowhere is internet is slow. Let's see, where are we here? I know it's in here. There you go. There is no position which depends on clearer principles than that every act of a delegated authority, contrary to the tenor of the commission under which it is exercised, is void. Alexander Hamilton. Right. By the way, that is also supported by the Chief Judge, by the Supreme Court in the case Marbury versus Madison. So it wasn't simply Hamilton was saying, it was also the Supreme Court said this. So if the president signed a treaty that was not a power delegated to the United States, that was not that was contrary to the tenor of the commission of their power, that act is void. When the Senate ratified it, when they gave their consent, they were acting contrary to the tenor of their delegated authority. That act is void. Right? The fact that they followed the process doesn't, just because you follow the process doesn't mean that what you're doing is legal and valid. So if we were to take that logic of a Madison or others and say, well, we went through the treaty process. Yeah, but you went through the treaty process to do something you weren't authorized to do. Therefore, it is void. Now, here's the other. Let me read the rest of that quote because it's cool. He talks about legislative acts can be no legislative act, therefore, contrary to the Constitution, can be valid. So the approval of the Louisiana Purchase was not valid. But here, let's go on. To deny this would to affirm that the deputy is greater than the principal, that the servant is above his master, that the representatives of the people are superior to the people themselves, that men acting by virtue of powers may do not only what their powers do not authorize, but what they forbid. To me, that's game, set, and match. If they were acting contrary to the commission under which they were commissioned, then the authority delegated them under their commission, then that act is void. It's invalid. And by the way, Louisiana is not the only one. Do you realize that West Virginia was never legally made a state? Yeah, I read when I was researching my book. I came across this and it kind of blew my mind. So during it was right around the Civil War. Yeah, it was the Civil War. So Virginia seceded from the Union, right? Now, not all of Virginia wanted to secede. The western part of Virginia wanted to remain a part of the Union. So what happened was it Congress? I'm trying to remember if Congress initiated this. They basically took unelected representatives of the western part of Virginia and declared that they are the legally authorized representatives of Virginia, and they are the ones that authorize the separation, the split in Virginia between two different states. The people who authorized in the name of Virginia were never legally elected to do that. They were simply, Congress said, oh, Virginia, you seceded. Well, now you're the legitimate guys. You go vote on it and we'll make it happen. This stuff happens all the time. We shouldn't be terribly surprised. Okay, what else we got? Okay, so that's all the questions on the yes. So that's all the questions I have written down. Hey, it looks like we got a pretty decent crowd today. I got 5 people on YouTube, 1 on Periscope. Periscope, that's probably Tunnel Lord. Tunnel Lord's good, man. He tries to whip people into place. He's my warm-up act. So what time is it here? It's a little after 4:15. So we got about 15 more minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Let's throw, what did we not cover yet? We did the, Trump's lawsuit. If anybody has a link to the actual lawsuit, please send it to me. I want to see the actual language because every report I've heard so far says that Trump is suing them for violating, among other things, for violating the First Amendment. Well, they're private companies. They cannot violate the First Amendment. However, and this is why I wanted to read the actual language, Congress has violated the First Amendment. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act is a violation of the First Amendment of the United States because Congress has passed a law denying you, abridging your right to petition the government for redress of grievances. So that's why I want to see the language, the details matter. If what he's suing is that Section 230 is a violation of the First Amendment, therefore he has the right to sue them for breach of contract. Cool, I'll go for it. If he's claiming that private organizations can violate the First Amendment, that's a non-starter. That's bogus. Anybody comments on that? Questions, thoughts? No, boy, I don't know that. Sorry. So we did.
I'm trying to remember. I swear I heard it on the radio somewhere that because it's a class action lawsuit, you can actually join in on it. I'm trying to look it up. I can't recall off the top of my head, but if I find it, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, because again, and it's interesting because if I can agree with the complaint in the lawsuit, I might join, right? Because Facebook canceled me and all that fun and games. So yeah, I wanted, but I want the details, right? Because I ain't trusting a journalist to tell me what it actually says. Even journalists I trust, I don't trust. So. What about antitrust laws for social media? Well, federal antitrust laws are illegal. Tell me where in the Constitution is the United States delegated the authority to regulate the size of business? It's not. Therefore, it cannot be a power of the United States. Therefore, that is another invalid, illegal law. I don't care who it applies to. And here's the interesting thing. I love when governments complain about monopolies. The only true monopolies in this country are the government and the government sponsored monopolies. So utilities, right? Electric companies, gas companies, phone companies, right? Only government can create a monopoly because only government can prevent someone else from entering the market. Now, does Facebook and Twitter and YouTube own the vast majority, control the vast majority? Absolutely. There is nobody with a gun to your head saying you must sign up for Facebook. There's nobody that's going to contact you and say, listen here, Mr. Engel, we noticed you haven't watched enough YouTube this month to fulfill your quota. It doesn't happen. It is a voluntary exchange. The fact that we, the people, didn't recognize, not enough of the people recognize the dangers of letting of what these companies could do is where the real problem is. And let's face it, if Facebook, YouTube, Amazon, Twitter, if they were not as big as they are, we would not get the quote unquote free services from them. Right? One of the things I debated for a while. On the website, I have a calendar, right? So all my events, I put on the Constitution study. And one of the things I can do is have one of those nice little convenient maps pop up, right? So you put in the address and you have a map pop up. Well, the only one they support is Google Maps. And the question is, am I going to support Google by using their mapping API because it doesn't cost me anything? All it costs me is all of your information. So I don't do it. The problem with Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and all of these are not the fact that they are large. It's the fact that their customers don't hold them accountable. And well, let me rephrase that. With the exception of Amazon, their product doesn't hold them accountable. So when you use a free service from any internet provider, you are not the customer. You're the product. They're selling your information. That's how they make money. Google doesn't offer search for free, just out of the kindness of their heart. They're selling that data to advertisers. Facebook doesn't offer you the chance to keep in touch with grandma and grandpa for free. They charge advertisers and data agencies to access your data. So we just turned around and said, I was listening to, think about it. Remember when Twitter first started really getting big and people were like, they were tweeting, I just got up this morning. Here's what I had for breakfast. I went shopping here. Think of all the data they voluntarily gave to Twitter to analyze them. They never stopped and thought about it.
I had a great conversation with one of my coworkers about the telecommunications network, right? We used to have landlines run everywhere for telephones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this entire infrastructure was built by a company called Bell. and they owned basically the entire network. Nobody else could break into the market because nobody else could afford to put up such infrastructure. And so the government came in and forced Bell to break up and sell portions of the network so other companies could get in. I told him, I was like, government doesn't have any authority to do that. He's like, yeah, but it made everything so much cheaper because now there was competition. I was like, it doesn't matter. Government has no position. They had no authority there. And the people said, oh, I'll let you do that because it benefits me. And look at where it got us now. Now government thinks they can do that anyway.
Exactly. And to be honest, the thing to remember, especially when talking telecommunication, I love talking about telecommunication. It's what's called the last mile problem. You have to understand, I spent 30 years in IT. I spent 30 years dealing with networks, telephone networks, data networks, wireless networks, landline networks, fiber networks, all sorts of networks. The problem is the cost of putting up the poles to go that last mile to your house it's expensive. What most companies do is they make a deal with the town for exclusive rights to put up poles. Now, in the town I lived in back in New York, we had a phone company. That phone company tried to start a cable company. It failed. Wasn't working. Wasn't making. So they sold the cable company to somebody else. Part of that deal was the cable company was forbidden from providing internet service. You couldn't get cable internet because of the contract when they sold it. Now, the phone company owned they had all the lines. They owned all they used all the power company poles, right? But the way the system was set up, it was impossible for a rival phone company to string wires to your home. Right? One of the things we had a deal. A major carrier got an easement to run several fiber optic lines through the center of town, right? And part of that easement was the town had the right to gain access to the cables, right? So it was fiber to tap into the fiber, right? So I was asked to come talk to help them because they wanted to provide internet. And here's the problem. Who's going to run it? And then you've set up the law so that, okay, let's say we set up a tap, right? And we set up a connection. How are you going to get that connection to everybody's home? You've told the local phone company they basically have exclusive rights to run those cables. How are you going to run the cables now? Right? Because of the expense, those companies want exclusivity, and the towns and counties were more than happy to trade it for them. That's where a lot of those problems come from. Okay, we got social media laws. Oh, we had one. I hear people complaining all the time. 3 local businesses to hand them their money, so they stay that way. You know what? I don't have a problem with the rich. Let's face it. Most of us would prefer to be rich. And also, let's face it, compared to the rest of the world, everybody on this call is fabulously wealthy. I mean, orders of magnitude. You compare your standard of living to the vast majority of the population, and you're Jeff Bezos. All right. The average poor person in America lives in more square footage than the average middle income European. Right? The problem isn't the rich. The point I want to make is, you hear people complaining about big box stores, and you're right. They'll drive by 3 local businesses to do business at a big box store. Why? Because it's cheaper, which means you don't really care about the small mom and pops. You want your stuff cheaper, which all of us do. Now, all right, let me throw this out there real quick. here's my challenge to every small business owner. This is a perfect time for small business owners. Here's what you should do. If you have a retail storefront, get a big sign, fill your window with this sign. We believe in your rights, or we respect your rights. No mask, no vaccine, no problem. Every time I was telling businesses to do this, right? Because I got Walmart out there making me stand in line 6 feet apart and wearing a mask. Well, actually, mine didn't require us to wear a mask, or I can go to the local store that says, hey, no mask, no vaccine, no problem. We forget that the reason we go to big box stores is because it's cheaper. But if you're a small business, if you can provide me something, a better value, not simply a better price, a better value, then I'll go there. Walmart did an experiment years ago. It was is one of the big, Buy American. So they bought a bunch of stickers made in the USA. They went through all of their stores, and every product they had that was made in the USA got a sticker, made in the USA, made in the USA, made in the USA. You know what? The price of made in the USA products the sales of made in the USA products went down. We have to decide, what is it worth? We all make value judgments. We have to decide for ourselves what is more important. And rather than judging other people for the judgments they make, we'd be better served in the long run. Liberty and freedom would be better served if we asked them why they made that judgment and maybe gave them an argument that they hadn't thought of. What I call the intat, I never thought of that. And why give government more power? They'll just screw it up. They're good at that. So, okay, we've had our 90 minutes. This has been a good program. We've had more people than before. Do me a favor, bring more friends. I love when we've got these and we can have all these excellent discussions. Wait a second. Okay, there are market failures though. Should we focus on giving the right to governments? Okay. Why would you trust government rather than a corporation? What is the difference between government and a corporation? If you don't trust Apple, right? Apple has more cash on hand than the federal government does. Why? If you wouldn't trust Apple to do it, why would you trust government to do it? Government is just an organization of people. They have the same failures, the same foibles, the same weaknesses as everybody else. The difference is they have the legal authority to use force. Why would you hand a mugger more power to extort from you? That's why. See, the Declaration says governments get their just powers from the consent of the governed. So in order for government to have a just power, we must consent. How do we consent? We consent via constitutions. When we establish governments, we set the boundaries of their power. We all agree to it, or at least a majority of us agree to it. That becomes the framework. Those are their just powers. Anytime you ask government to do something beyond its just power, you are aiding and abetting fraud. You are aiding and abetting a criminal act. You are asking the government. It is no different than, asking, Uncle Nunzio to go collect a debt from somebody for you. You didn't beat the guy up, but you're aiding and abetting because you gave him the power to go do that. So when you give government the power to fix a problem for you, you're aiding and abetting them to do something they're not legally authorized to do. And you are just as culpable for how they do it as if you did it yourself. James Garfield said, now more than ever, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If it be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt, it's because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it's because the people demand these qualities of those who represent them in the national legislature. Do you want to give them power that they're not legally authorized to? Would you really trust government with that type of power? Just because remember, when you're talking about market failures, you're talking about millions of people making individual decisions for what is best for them. What you refer to as a market failure, in many cases, may simply be people who disagree with you on what is best for them. If you think it's a market failure that that we have big box stores, all that is that people have decided, millions of people have decided, the price benefit of the big box store is more valuable to me than dealing with a local person or whatever benefit I get from going to a local store. Now, the fact that you don't like that doesn't mean it's wrong. It's what's best for them. The same way, you look at Facebook. A lot of people say Facebook has been a market failure. Well, millions of people have decided that they are more than willing to sell their information, to give their information to Facebook, to be lied to, and to be censored. That's their decision. Now, I can either take that decision away from them, or I can educate them and help show them that that may not be the best overall. You may think it is, it may not be. If I take it from them, I'm the tyrant. If I try to educate them, then I'm a freedom fighter. Then I'm a libertarian. Then I am standing the ground for liberty.
Careful. You don't want to say freedom fighter. That's an extremist movement.
I'm already an extremist. I believe the Constitution means what it says. I refer to the Supreme Court as a group of 9 high priests in black robes who you need a reading comprehension class. I am probably on more lists than I would care to know. So, okay, it's been a great night. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back here in a couple of weeks. Again, if you want to sign up for the Zoom, it's on constitutionstudy.com. Check out constitutionscholars.com. If you can, please bring a friend. We love having more people here. It was great. Everyone, have a good night. If you want, this recording will be on YouTube automatically. It'll be on the rest of my platforms probably tomorrow afternoon. All right. Good night, everyone.